Welcome to this week's Zygo Network Renewable Roundup podcast. I'm very excited this week, and I think you're wondering why. This week I'm joined by Gregorio Morales, who is the Chief Commercial Officer for Sonnidex. Now, you're probably asking, why is Russell so excited about this? Well, the reason is because I've been wondering about what it means to be a next-gen IPP for some time now, and Gregorio has agreed to come and tell me all about it. I think this is going to be a really interesting podcast. I hope you do too. Good morning, Gregorio. Thank you very much for joining me this morning. I'm really pleased to have you here. I followed Sonnedix for a while, and I think it's a lovely and really innovative organisation. And obviously, I'm pleased to have you because I believe you've got something like 25 years of industry experience.
Yes. Good morning, Russell. First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to have this conversation. Yes, indeed, I have been in this industry for 25 years. I recently joined Sonnedix a year ago with a very ambitious plan on trying to develop the business model that Sonnedix was driving from a more traditional IPP to a next-gen IPP. As I said, it's 25 years in the industry. I have been previously to Sonnedix working 24 years in Naturgy, which is a gas and power Spanish utility, where I've been developing diverse roles within the natural gas, LNG, and power industry. So very excited on this opportunity that I have with Sonnedix, and happy to discuss about all the things that we are currently developing.
That's super. I'm very excited because I think there's a lot going on. Hopefully we can keep time. We could talk all day, I know. You did mention, and this is really interesting, this was where I wanted to start. You mentioned, obviously, you joined and the opportunity around the whole next-gen IPP. Can you just give me a bit of, and the listeners, a bit of a view of what you think it means to be a next-gen IPP, and how does that differ from just being, so we say, a traditional generator or IPP?
Correct. Yes, I mean, and this is a question that many people do. What means to be a next generation IPP? I mean, from our perspective, I mean, we are talking about the evolution of the traditional energy model that renewable companies have been driving for the last years. I mean, historically, all developers have been focusing mainly on developing, building, operating assets, always looking on a project basis and selling on the traditional way through routes to market or to traditional companies through tenders. As a next generation IPP, we're trying to go beyond that. The idea is to sell on portfolio level, and that is one of the main changes. Being closer to power markets, learn to manage all the volatility we are seeing in the market, and more present nowadays with what we are seeing in the Middle East. But most importantly, it's being much closer to the end market. The idea of Sonnedix is not just generate renewable electricity, because we do have a fantastic portfolio of generation assets worldwide. We would like to evolve how we sell and how we structure and optimize this energy within our portfolio. And as I said, with a strong focus on trying to comply with the customer needs and generate a long-term value. That is very important for us. So we are very well positioned to offer this energy directly to the customers at their consuming point, and this is one also of the relevant things we are trying to change, but mostly with a broad range of different commercial structures. We can offer fixed price PPAs. Yes, we can offer index products. We can offer even hybrid solutions, combining both, but mainly depending on what is the appetite of the customer towards these kind of structures.
That's really, really interesting. I'll be honest with you. I've heard people talk about next gen IPP a lot. I'm not sure that people perhaps always fully have understood it. But what I love is you're very clear. You kind of know what that means. And it was interesting you talked about an evolution. And one of the things that I thought when I was listening was a long time ago, as a consumer, let's say an industrial or commercial, my only choice was a public utility with a fixed price, whatever. I had to go because everything was carved up. That moved on a bit, and it was like, right, you can now have a utility or a supplier who's deregulated. Maybe you've got choice. And to me, and you may disagree, but the next gen IPP feels like an evolution of that. It's kind of like you've moved you're not a supplier, but you're moving into that. You've said things like portfolio and getting close to the market and the customer, and there's elements that suppliers have in the utilities of that have to do. But we've seen smaller suppliers try to come in, but actually what I think you're saying is the next gen IPP actually fits very neatly into a gap, and into a space there that says, I'm not just throwing everything across the wall, we're just producing. Where actually it's a more considered strategic approach to how you can purchase energy without it necessarily, if your choice of supplier isn't giving you what you want, you've got another option.
Correct. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's bringing simplicity to the customers. That's what the customer is looking. I mean, to have it easy, that they don't have to care about what is the price of energy at a certain point. So they have the confidence and have the flexibility that a good supplier can provide to us. I mean, that involves a lot of work behind, mainly on the risk management. But again, we are preparing, we are evolving the company towards that situation. As I said, this is what it means to be a next gen IPP, not just being a price taker of the market, just being a market driver. I mean, let's make the life of the customers more simple. It's as easy as that. Makes it more simple.
I can almost hear customers now cheering out there because I think there's a lot of people who see a lot of complexity, and simplification is definitely a way to go. It's very, very good. You've obviously mentioned you're shifting towards this next gen IPP approach. Can you share with me what kind of things have driven you to do that, to shift that focus?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, and how do we see it? I mean, there are three main drivers behind this shift. First one is the market. Okay, currently power markets are far more volatile than they were before, and increasingly, I mean, everyone thinks this is going to get less volatile. It doesn't look like that, and they're getting much more complex. So managing this price risk, the flexibility, the optionality, and the timing has become essential as a first thing. Secondly, the customers. Currently, industrial and corporate customers are not looking only for green energy, okay, because that one is fairly available in the market. They want that the energy is reliable, is competitive, and adapt to their needs. I mean, they need a tailored solution, being able to, as I said, manage that cost volatility and complies also, of course, and meet their decarbonization targets. And finally, as a third, is the scale. I mean, Sonnedix is currently operating approximately 4.8 gigawatts of capacity in very diverse markets. We have footprint in their markets. So that scale is what have given us the confidence that we have to take that natural step of progressively building a stronger commercial capabilities that allows us to capture more value and also more important, have a greater control over how our energy is being sold in the market.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, complexity and volatility, we talked about it. Everyone listening in the energy industry will probably be kind of sweating something at the moment. As you said, any energy buyer right now is looking at the price of gas and power and wondering, what's going on. They're under a lot of pressure. Things like, I'm sure you're aware, the proposed changes to the GHG protocol, for example, locality and hourly matching that the GHG are thinking about. Do you think then that actually being a next gen IPP means that it could give you an advantage in that period of change? So if locality and matching are introduced by the GHG, maybe the portfolio level approach, shaping customer needs, further volatility in the market allows you to do things that customer would value. Do you think that's also a valid kind of approach?
No, yes, I mean, absolutely. And as I said, is geopolitical environment creates complexity and volatility, but regulation creates also a lot of volatility and uncertainty also for customers. Indeed, there is an opportunity, and as I said, we need, as an next-gen IPP, to work to make the life of the customers simple. They shouldn't care about these kind of things. Should someone else, I mean, and I mean us as a next-gen IPP, we should take care for all that. Of course, we need to share with the customer what it means to take over that risk management, because they also need to understand what that means. But I think it's our target to take that in, to be fully aligned on what the customer needs. And as I said, maybe I'm emphasizing too much on it, but we need to make the life of the customers much simpler than it is today. A customer needs to be focused on their business, just to make their business more efficient, more competitive. And if the customer loses a lot of time in understanding how the energy market is working, what regulation is going to affect them, I mean, they're going to be losing focus on what really is important for them. So they need to have the possibility of partnering. And this is the important part also, creating that long-term relationship with a company that takes care for that volatility and uncertainty around the energy, and allow them to be focused on what is really important for them, just to grow and be competitive.
I like it. I would agree with you on the customer. I spend a lot of time here, I won't say reminding, but just saying, let's put the customer in the center of the table. That's what it's about. And, over my experience, being close to customers, understanding what they want, delivering those kind of things, adding the value to them is definitely a really good way to go. Obviously, you said quite a lot there, actually, that explains some of the value you're adding to customers. If you can, do you also see that it adds value for Sonnedix in terms of how you're obviously you're hoping for growth and what have you, but obviously you feel that this approach not only is going to build a customer base, but do you feel it has other benefits for you?
I mean, indeed, yes. As you said, the first one is the possibility to have a growth, but most important, and this is what I think is important, is a growth that has quality, is a quality growth. I mean, for us, it's important that when we invest in additional power generation, if we invest in additional capabilities, that we have a long-term perspective on this growth, and we do have a quality growth. What is going to bring to us? As I said, we like to compete with the existing companies. We like to bring something new to the market that currently is not being offered. And as I said, we do have an aim on decarbonizing the existing power industry in Europe, because we believe it's the way forward for two reasons. One, for security of supply. As I said, very relevant nowadays. I think electrification is one of the main drivers the European Union should be looking at in the short and long term, but also, as I said, being more competitive. So for us, the aim is, as I said, offering reliable energy, but offering also competitive energy that adapts to the customer. As I said, as a company, this is part of our core values, and for us, I mean, this is what we are pursuing, and we hope to be successful. We think we are offering an attractive solution to customers, and we hope that customers are in a position to put trust on what we are offering, and being able, of course, to offer them all the options they have in mind.
I think that it's really interesting. I think one of the things that thank you for sharing that. One of the things I picked out there was about bringing something new, and I do think that that's important, because I think, you know, you said it close to the beginning about how the markets are evolving, how things are changing, and I think, you know, that ability to look at it and bring something new, and to move, should we say, move with the times, but to move with customer needs and demand. I think you know, working with a customer at any given point, that obviously gives you a good chance. But I also think moving with, if you're signing a 15-year PPA, the world changes over 15 years, and potentially, I've seen it by working with, you know, others on long-term agreements. So not being a sales pitch, but I've seen it, is things happen in the life of that 15-year contract that you need to work together to sort out or figure out. And I do think having that ability to say, yeah, you know what, we have got a commercial balance, we do understand all of those things, but we could work on things when things change, you know, to a degree, is a really helpful culture to have, because as you said, it comes back to our partnership, which, you know, we're all human beings. We like to work with people who are good to work with, and you know, you don't want to think, if anything happens in this contract, I'm going to get nailed to the wall here. I'd much rather say, do you know what, that's a good counterparty, I know that we'll be able to work something out. I think that's really, you know, it's an interesting approach. It took me slightly away from what my next question was actually going to be, Gregorio, which was when you were talking about something new. I know in your recent LinkedIn post, you were talking about looking at Spain, Portugal and Italy. And so I was wondering if you were able to share if you've got any sort of plans to look at other markets, or if maybe there are any particularly exciting projects or anything like that you maybe wanted to highlight.
Yes, indeed, we are very focused currently on Portugal, Spain, and Italy, just mainly because is where we do have our biggest presence, and where we see we can add very shortly another value. But of course, I mean, we are trying to implement a business model that we think is scalable and replicable in most of the jurisdictions we are present beyond Southern Europe, and we see that clear potential for doing so. Where are the current projects where we are more focused on is mainly two. Well, there are many, but let me say I would highlight two of them. One is the integration of battery storage and hybrid solutions. On one hand, trying to hybridize all our portfolio. We are heavily investing in doing so. We have quite ambitious plan in Portugal, Spain, and Italy to implement significant amount of batteries that will allow us, and two things: be more resilient, that is important in the current environment, but additionally, as I said, to offer to the customer the things that a traditional IPP was not able to offer beyond the traditional PS produce. So now we're going to be able to offer many more things. The other project that we are working very intensively is to establish our own trading desk from the year 27, to be able to dispatch our own generation assets directly in the market. That takes a huge amount of effort in people, resources, regulation. But we are actively working on it, because that possibility will also, or having that dispatch, will allow us also to offer even more services to the customer that today we cannot offer. As I said, market is driving towards having flexibility on the production side through the batteries, but we think there's going to be a big value also on the flexibility on the demand side, and not having a dispatch, not having that trading desk that represents assets and customers in the market, will not allow us to offer all that possibility to the customers that I think customers are interested in embracing, because, as I said, is added value to the customer, and every customer needs to have the possibility of choosing what they want. Some people prefer more risk. Some people prefer to be less risky. Some people are willing to take a lower price if they are giving away flexibility. So we need to be able, as a company, to offer all the alternatives to the customers.
That's really exciting, Gregorio, because I think I can see how the hybridization and the batteries and the trading fit together. You mentioned the demand side. That's where I started my career many years ago, working with demand side customers. So I am, and I've always been an advocate of that in the right way. And obviously, as you said at the end, some customers like it, can do it, want to do it in some degree and see the benefit of it. Others be more happy for you to say, well, no, that's fine. We can flex our portfolio to meet your needs. And I think, to me, if I was going to boil it all back down, and a lot of what we've talked about, that's what the next gen bit to me is. It's about saying it's not the old model of should we say pay as produced. Not saying that's not valid or not right, but the next gen bit is about how does the production and the consumption fit together? How is the flexibility used? How is it moving on? It's not just a sort of we give, you take. It's more like, say, how are we working together? We're giving you something, you're giving us something, we're working out what you need, and it's taking that forward. And I think it's going to be a very interesting space to watch in the coming years. So thank you for sharing that kind of information. I know we're kind of heading towards the end, but I have a couple of questions left, if that's all right. I have in quite a few podcasts asked my guests or victims, sometimes as we I think they feel, about what they think how the PPA market might evolve in Europe in the next couple of years. So sorry to kind of drop it on you a little bit, but how do you think, Gregorio, how do you think the PPA market might go in Europe in the next couple of years?
I mean, very good question. I mean, and we don't have the crystal ball, so we don't know what is going to happen. But from our perspective, I think it's a market that is going to get more mature. It is already more mature than it was some years ago, and it's getting more sophisticated. I mean, introduction of batteries and introduction of, as I said, a portfolio approach will make it more sophisticated, mainly because the customers demand it. Okay, there will be a much stronger focus on the risk management to be able to provide flexible pricing and structures, and even going away from the traditional structures of the PPA. So going away from the pay as produced, going away from the standard 10 years. I think customers more and more need to move towards shorter, more adapted tenors, mainly because some customers are able to predict very well. I mean, the big corporates, they are able to know that they're going to consume in 10 years. Data centers, they don't have any issue in consuming for 10 years because they have a business that is, I would say, very stable. But you do have still a significant, I would say, majority part of the industry that is not capable of making a prediction and looking at the current environment less of what is going to be their consumption in 3 years, what is going to be the price environment in 3 years, or even if they are going to be still competitive if they close prices for 10 years. And as I said, we need to partner with the customer. As I said, from our perspective, I mean, even in already existing PPAs, we are continuously having conversations to the customer on how we can adapt those structures to make it, I mean, more comfortable for them. I mean, customers need to understand. I mean, customer needs to be aware that we are caring for them. As I said, this is a partnership. We are looking, for example, to hybridize most of our PPAs. We are offering that to our customers. We are happy to invest on having a battery towards the existing PPAs, willing to offer different structures on how we can modify this PPA just to adapt to their needs. I mean, we're seeing that currently, depending on the market, but in Spain, for example, you have a very saturated solar profile market where many people are in a situation where they bought some solar profiles at a certain price at that moment that currently are trapped on a situation where the market is not showing that same level of price. So we are offering the possibility of modifying that PPA, even adapting that PPA, hybridizing that PPA, so that the customers can cope with their existing commitments, not putting them on a difficult situation. I think that way of collaborating much more closely to the customers, adapting the tenors, adapting the conditions, is going to be the future of the PPAs. I mean, if we think that as an industry we can remain in signing a PPA for 10 years, keeping it is and not touching it for 10 years, this is going to be a big mistake. And I think customers will be very, very selective on what type of PPAs or with what counterparties they're going to sign if they don't perceive that their suppliers are going to be flexible enough to help them in complicated or difficult situations.
I think that's great, and I think that sort of flexibility is things I've seen in my experience, where a 15-year PPA, say a discount to market with a utility, off it went, floor price, and then when things happen one way or the other, for example, when gas prices and power prices in EU were very high, some of those customers were sort of wondering whether there was anything they could do at that point to take advantage, and the ability to look at it and go, actually, without breaking it, we can help. We can adjust to those challenges. We can find solutions. And I agree with you. I think the market is evolving in that way. I think risk management is a thing. I think, current oil, gas and power prices have reminded buyers of what can happen of shocks, and hopefully it's very short term, but if you look at any EU price graph, it's still dominated by that huge bell curve of prices for the Ukraine conflict, and now we've got another spike. Now it's not on that same magnitude yet, but we've got another spike, and just as people have thought, oh, the world settled down, and we've had another one. So I think buyers are looking at risk management, as you said. They're looking strategically at how do I pull all these different bits together, so I've got good purchasing decisions, I've got good risk management, and I think that's kind of coming down. Oh, by the way, I've also got to fit that in with my ESG commitments and changes. There's a lot of complexity, so I think being able to offer solutions, and we will see the market will have to move to deliver the solutions that are needed at that point for the buyers. So I think everything a lot of what you said there makes a lot of sense. So to wrap up, Gregorio, because I think I'm conscious I've taken quite a bit of your time today, and I do appreciate it. What do you see as the future then for Sonnedix? What's next maybe out there?
I think for us, I mean, is in terms of what we see for the future is which our plans is establishing ourselves as I would say first one as a next generation IPP, because it takes some time and efforts, but happy to be a leader in this industry. We don't want to be the first one, but at least being able to be leading this change is satisfactory for us. Of course, continue growing. I mean, we are a big believer of renewable industry. We think is the right way to go, and so for us, is continuing to grow is important. But as I said that previously, is the quality of that growth that is important for us. Relying on being very customer centric, being much more integrated in the market, and as a whole, being much more resilient. I think is even though this is a word that was used years ago, I think this is a word that will come back again a lot, is being resilient. I mean, being able to be protected against, I would say, everything, but at least be prepared and being capable of coping with this environment and volatility is going to be very important. We are building a platform that we expect truly fits with the future of the energy system. As I said, decarbonized, electrified, but we need still continue to offer reliable energy, and of course, competitive energy. This is very important because we think that is what customers are looking for. Having that reliability, having that competitiveness, and of course, embracing that it needs to be done on a fully renewable energy solutions.
Fabulous. I think that's a really good place to wrap it up. Thank you. First of all, from me to you, thank you so much again, Gregorio, for taking the time out of your schedule to come and talk, and you know, for the input. It's been really fascinating to get the benefits of your expertise and your experience in the market. So thanks for that. If anybody has listened today and thinks that there's something that Sonnedix can do for them, should they reach out to you? Is that the best way to get in touch?
Yes, absolutely. We do. I'm happy to be contactable for any customer that is interested in understanding what Sonnedix is able to offer. We do have a fantastic sales team that cares for the different countries. So happy to have that initial conversation, and of course to have a more detailed conversation country by country.
Yeah, no problem. And if anyone can't get hold of Gregorio, feel free to get in touch with me if you've got an interest in what Sonnedix can do, and I will put you in touch without a doubt. I will wrap it up there. Gregorio, thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining me today.
Okay. Thank you, Russell, for your time and your patience with me, and hope to see you soon and having another interesting conversation as the one we had today.
Oh, definitely. I would love to do this again. So when we finished, we'll have a talk about that. Thanks, Gregorio.
Fantastic. Thank you, Russell.